Hello and welcome back. This is, I believe, the fourth video in my micro series about breaking down and understanding propaganda. So far, we've talked about negative propaganda, positive propaganda, talked a little bit about affirmational or aspirational propaganda. We've talked about the paradox of propaganda. So now I want to dive into the ideological and structural forms of propaganda. Ideological meaning an ideology or a series of beliefs that you have about something, and structural referring to something being built into how a system works. There are, I believe, 6 or 7 examples I'm going to go over, and as usual, I will show you maybe some relevant visuals, just because it's boring to sit here and just watch me speak. So the first type I want to talk about is cult of personality. Cult of personality elevates a leader as heroic, godlike, or infallible, which means that they can do no wrong. This form of propaganda often uses extensive media coverage, public displays, and artistic representations to create an image of the leader as uniquely qualified and indispensable, or meaning that we can't live or survive without them. It discourages dissent by making any criticism of the leader seem unpatriotic or even sacrilegious. Now, dissent is essentially just the sharing of a different opinion. Now, there are some historically relevant examples that I'll get to at the end of each of these, but first let's just get through each of the types. The next type is patriotic or nationalistic propaganda. This conflates loyalty to your country with loyalty to a specific political party, idea/ideology, or leader. It often evokes strong emotions like pride, duty, and even fear of external threats, framing the political agenda as essential for the nation's survival or prosperity. Nationalistic propaganda essentially says that you only love your country if you fall in line with and love a specific leader or a specific idea. The next is religious propaganda. This frames political or social ideas in religious terms to discourage questioning and to help garner support. It leverages your pre-existing religious beliefs or your moral frameworks or your concepts or ideas around spiritual authority to legitimize political actions or suppress dissent, often portraying opponents as immoral or even sacrilegious. Religious propaganda basically works to say that if you don't agree with X concept or idea, then you're a bad Christian, or you're a bad Jew, or you're a bad atheist. The next is corporate or commercial propaganda. Now this is all around you because you're on TikTok right now. This promotes consumerism, a particular lifestyle, or brand loyalty, while obscuring underlying issues related to those things like labor exploitation, environmental damage, or unethical business practices. It often uses aspirational imagery, celebrity endorsements, and emotional appeals to create a positive association with the product or the brand to distract you from any of those potential negative impacts. The next is educational propaganda. This invokes the use of curriculum, textbooks, or educational programs to present biased historical or civic information with the aim of shaping the ideology or idea set of students from an early age. This can involve selective inclusion or exclusion of facts, skewed interpretations of events and history, or outright fabrication of information to promote a particular worldview. And then the last one we're going to talk about before we jump into the examples is astroturfing. Astroturfing refers to fake grassroots campaigns that are made to look like they are spontaneously driven by everyday people, but in fact are funded and orchestrated by corporations, political groups, or other forms of organizations. This tactic aims to create a false impression of widespread public support for a particular agenda or a product. Now I'm going to give you some examples of each of these, and let's dive in. So for cult of personality, the example that I've chosen to use historically is Joseph Stalin. Now, Stalin's image was meticulously crafted in the Soviet Union through pervasive propaganda that depicted him as a benevolent genius, the great leader, the father of nations. Statues, portraits, songs, films, parades glorified his every action and his every idea, while any opposition ideas were brutally suppressed. Another example in modern times, and not the one that you think I'm probably going to mention because I don't like drama on my page, would be Kim Jong-un, the current leader of North Korea. And in fact, the Kim family in North Korea is presented as divine leaders. They're believed that their divinity rule comes from the fact that they are directly descended from and ordained by the sun itself. So for nationalistic and patriotic propaganda, I've already shown you quite a lot of examples of that already on the page when I shared the Uncle Sam Wants You campaign from the United States. And in the UK, there was a similar campaign of Your Country Needs You. These sought to directly tie military service and support for the war effort at that time to a sense of national duty. This Norman Rockwell poster we talked about in one of my earlier videos, which were meant to inspire you to think about your rights as a citizen and then use those rights to buy war bonds. During the regime in Germany, was not just used as a greeting, it was meant to be an affirmation of loyalty to the and its leader, equating their agenda with the literal destiny of the German nation on every basic daily interaction. So a next example is around religious propaganda. And so good examples of that can be seen in the Crusades through the 11th and 13th centuries. During this time, the Catholic Church heavily promoted the idea that fighting in the Crusades was a holy endeavor. It was a way for you to earn your salvation and reclaim sacred lands from non-Christians. This religious framing motivated thousands to participate and justify violent acts. In more recent times, you see extremist groups use religious texts to justify political violence, social repression every day, and it's only growing. So an example I've picked for corporate and commercial propaganda is also something we've talked a little bit about before. And that's early 20th century advertising for tobacco companies. From the 1900s to about the 1990s, you would see commercial and corporate propaganda related to the tobacco industry everywhere, in TV commercials, in magazine advertisements, on billboards, and in bus stops. Young people today might not realize that there were laws that actually went into place to stop these things from being advertised in certain places. But big tobacco often would run campaigns that associated smoking with being sophisticated or independent, being in good health, despite the growing scientific evidence to the contrary. You see modern examples of this in greenwashing campaigns, where corporations are trying to promote an environmentally friendly image while their core operations are still highly polluting or unsustainable. This is like when your favorite fast fashion website puts out a sustainable collection of clothes that you know simply can't be. My next example is textbooks in totalitarian regimes. So in school textbooks were rewritten to promote that specific ideology, things like and. Similarly, in the Soviet Union, history textbooks presented a highly sanitized version of events that glorified the Communist Party and demonized the concept of capitalism. Even in democratic societies, debate often arises about how historical events, like the origins of a particular conflict or the legacy of things like slavery or colonialism, are presented in textbooks. You're seeing more people talk about how we need to have agenda control over curriculums, and it's a slippery slope to propaganda. And the last example is astroturfing. This is things like concerned citizens groups that are formed by industry lobbyists. So a fossil fuel company might secretly fund a community group that opposes environmental regulations, presenting their views as genuine public outrage, but it's really just the shilling of a mega corporation. I hope this helped.